In the Second World War, controlling the seas would once again mean the difference between victory and defeat. A key battleground was the Atlantic Ocean.
The Battle of the Atlantic starts on the 3rd of September, 1939, and it finishes on VE Day, May 1945. It never stops.
The Battle of the Atlantic was one of the key sort of things that Churchill in later life said kept him up at night. The worry that failure would result in the loss of those vital supplies, the inability to feed the population and the inability to prosecute war in Europe.
The Germans, understandably, have worked out that for an island nation like Britain, everything it needs has to come in ships. If you stop the ships arriving, Britain has no food, so it starves. It has no raw materials, so it can't make anything. Its economy collapses, and it will surrender. You don't need to invade.
The Germans' main weapon in the Atlantic was the formidable U-boat.
Tactically, the Germans would tend to put a whole number of U-boats out into the North Atlantic, and they'd spread them at various points, some close into America, some close into Britain, but others out in the middle, and they'd stretch a line of U-boats across the area that they would expect convoys to travel through. When a U-boat spotted a convoy, it would signal to German High Command, and they would start to assemble what they called a wolf pack, bringing large numbers of submarines together ahead of the predicted convoy course.
By now, it was clear that massive battleships were vulnerable to U-boat attacks, and that convoys needed protection from smaller, faster ships loaded with advanced technology. It was the coming of age of the destroyer. Today, there is just one surviving British destroyer from the Battle of the Atlantic, HMS Cavalier. In 1944, Cavalier's first operations were to protect larger warships and merchant ships in the Atlantic.
A destroyer is quite a specialised fleet unit. They're designed for speed and hitting power. They have no armour and no protection. Their speed is their protection.
They were able to move from one side of the convoy to the other with great speed, and increasingly were used as hunter-killer groups aimed specifically at trying to destroy German U-boats.
Their primary weapon was the depth charge, a high explosive dropped from the ship and set to detonate at a specific depth. But it had its limitations.
You had to run over the target to be able to launch weapons against it. And submarine captains were pretty canny about trying to make sure they weren't run over.
Weapons designers soon realized that destroyers needed to be able to target German U-boats without passing right over them.
It's led to the development of Hedgehog, which is basically a mortar, and it's firing a very large, heavy projectile across the top of the ship and down sort of trajectory that then enters the water in front of the bows.
In Churchill's words, the war at sea became a matter of seamanship and science. New shortwave radar sets were introduced that could detect U-boats as soon as they broke the surface, and the formation of Atlantic convoys was studied in detail. Churchill was advised that losses in the Atlantic could be reduced by multiplying the size of each convoy, by increasing its speed and boosting the number of close escort ships. It's believed this led to a 60% reduction in vessels lost. Another breakthrough for the Royal Navy came via the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, who fed the Admiralty vital information on U-boat movements.
The way the Germans controlled their ships through the Wolfpack system was all about communicating back to the submarine command. If you know where that particular place is and where they're gathering through signals intelligence, then you can target them.